Alrighty, hope you enjoyed that video with the Air 2S. Let's get into the video. Alright, so I've flown the Air 2S a lot over the past month. So in this video, I'm going to share what I've learned from flying this drone. If you like videos like this where I put together some shots in the beginning of the video and then talk about what I've learned from flying that drone, leave it in the comment below and I'll make more videos like this. Or do you just prefer that I just talk about the features of the drone and don't show you any clips? Let me know what you prefer and I'll do more of that. Now, flying this drone, I thought the image quality was very good, very comparable to the Mavic 2 Pro. Now, not quite as good. I'd say the Mavic 2 Pro is a little better. Now, you can shoot with D-Log with this drone and obviously with the Mavic 2 Pro as well. I used the D-Log because I could color grade it. I actually added a LUT, which I've included in my DJI Drone Pro course in the link below. And I added some more LUTs that I've put together in that course if you want to check that out. It was fairly easy to grade and looked really nice. I thought it had a lot of dynamic range. And as I said before, the colors weren't quite as good right out of the box as the Mavic 2 Pro, but you can tweak them, color grade them, and get, I'd say, very comparable results, maybe even better depending on your color grading skills. This has a lot of features, intelligent flight modes, but I didn't use any of the intelligent flight modes because you can't shoot in the D-Log. So I wanted to be consistent. I wanted to color grade the whole thing. So I shot in D-Log. Added ever so slight sharpening, not so much, and just kind of tweaked the colors and just applied that LUT and then made ever so slight changes. I found in places where the sky is really bright and it's a lake or someplace, the trees that were really dark, it was a little tougher to color grade that. And in other places, like where I shot with the windmills, it seemed to be perfect. I didn't really have to do any color grading. The LUT just kind of fit there perfectly. So really depends on the situation. I say in the situations where you need more dynamic range, you're gonna have to color grade it and tweak it a little more. So I did shoot in 4K at 60 frames per second the entire time. Now the 4K at 60 frames per second crops in a little bit. It's at about 30%, but to me, I didn't mind it as much as I thought. I thought that crop would bother me, but for most situations, it worked really well. Now you may enjoy the 5.4K because you can crop into that, but I shot at the 60 frames per second, which is only in 4K. And the reason I did that is because I can speed up or slow down the footage. So I wanted to be able to do that. To me, the extra 1.4K wasn't worth it. I'd rather just be cropped in and have the ability to speed up and slow down the footage. So if that's something you like to do, I recommend shooting 4K 60 frames per second. One thing I was a little disappointed is in 1080, it only shoots at 120 frames per second, at least with the firmware update I did. Maybe there's a new firmware update that increases that to 240 frames per second, but with my Mavic Air 2, I'm able to shoot at 240 frames per second in 1080, which I think is really awesome, especially when you're flying in the snow or when it's raining, which I did a little bit with this drone. I flew one morning and it just started raining, snowing, and it handled really well. It didn't seem to mind it. So with drones like this or bigger, the power of the blades and the ESCs is able to kind of whisk away the moisture. So when you bring it back, there's no moisture in the ESCs, the motors, or near the camera. So that's a huge upside to this drone. You are able to fly it both in snow and rain. I wouldn't fly it in like torrential downpour, that type of rain. It really depends on the type of moisture. But as you can see in this footage, I flew when it was coming down really hard. It was kind of like in between snow and rain, and had no problem flying it for 30 minutes or even like an hour, no problem. Now the range was really good. I expected that, being that this is Ocusync 3.0, or they call it O3 now. And this O3 range with this drone was just tremendous. I took it out, and you're supposed to keep it within visual line of sight, but I pushed that when I flew over the mountain a few times. I couldn't see it, and occasionally it did actually break up because I flew it really far. I kind of tested the max distance and pushed it really far, and when it broke up, it happened, I'd say at least 5 or 6 times over the last few weeks. And every time I just pressed the return to home button and eventually it would return to home, I would get the signal back. And one thing I also did is if I know I'm flying in this direction forward, I know coming back is the back direction. So as soon as I broke up with the signal, I just used the telemetry of the controller and fly it back towards me. So that's something you can also do while pressing the return to home button if you lose signal, but it gains signal every single time. So I have no fear of losing this drone. which with some other drones, obviously that happens. So that's really good. The range was really awesome. So right out of the box, this drone flies a little too fast and it's hard to control. It doesn't feel quite as good as the Mavic 2 Pro. Because of that, I had to adjust the yaw and the pitch speed of the gimbal as well, and sort of just the speed overall. I had to get a feel for it. Now it has something called Cine mode. I wish they had like tripod mode, because the Cine mode to me is still a little too fast. All right, I like to get those nice slow cinematic shots, so I really have to use my own skill rather than relying on the technology. So you'll have to adjust it in the app. I recommend adjusting the yaw, the pitch smoothness, and also just flying it a lot. You sort of get used to it, and after a few weeks I did get used to it, a bunch of flights, and had no problem getting similar results to the Mavic 2 Pro. But right out of the box, the Mavic 2 Pro does fly better than this drone. But like I said, with practice, it's not a huge deal as I thought it was in the beginning. I was a little disappointed, but now no big deal. And I actually really like the feel of this now after flying it for a while. Now the ND filters that came with this drone are ND4, 8, 16, and 32. And they were provided in the combo by DJI. So they came with the drone in the combo along with 3 batteries. And I really appreciated that. The ND filters work great. I haven't used any others, but I used these DJI ones and they worked great. And I was really surprised actually at how good they were. And ND4 to ND32 will cover you for most shooting situations. I like to shoot around sunrise or just after sunrise or before sunset, and that covered me no problem. I used mostly ND4 to ND16, and they were easy to put on and change real quick and worked out. Now I wish you could change the aperture. It's only f2.8, you can't change that. But having the ND filters solve that problem. So I highly recommend you get the combo because you get the 3 batteries, but more importantly, the ND filters are more important than the extra batteries. Speaking of batteries, the Mavic Air 2 batteries work with this drone as well. So they both look the same. You can see the 2 batteries, the 2 different batteries. They look almost identical except one's white here. It says DJI, one's not white. You can put either one in the drone. I've flown with both of them and they both fit great. All right, so this is the normal battery. The Mavic Air 2 battery goes in there as well, and I didn't really notice any difference in the flight time between the 2 different batteries. But I will say, flying in the wind, this drone doesn't perform great in terms of battery life. Now, in terms of handling wind, it did perform very well. It got really windy. I was flying really high under extreme conditions with snow, rain, wind, etc. And this thing handled really well. However, the battery drained, I think, faster than the Mavic 2 Pro. I didn't make any scientific study of it, didn't really measure it, but just from flying the Mavic 2 Pro for years and flying this for a month straight, I can say that these batteries do drain quickly. However, I had 3 other batteries from my Mavic Air 2, so having those 6 batteries total, I actually needed it. I was surprised that I needed that, but flying in wind was no problem, and this thing handled very, very well. Now I want to talk about a few specific shots in the video. You'll notice I flew really close to objects. Now most of the time I was just in normal mode, but when I'm flying between objects, for example, when I was on the mountain sitting down and I saw this little path between the trees out, and I thought that would be cool to go between the trees and out with that view. And just sitting down there, the easiest way to do it, at least the way I did it, was to fly in sport mode. There are other ways to do it, but this is the way I did it. I just put it in sport mode. And when I flew between the trees, it handled really well and I was able to control it. Flying between those trees, I shot at 4K 60 frames per second. Now I would have preferred a little wider at 5.4. I tried that out. However, I couldn't speed it up or slow it down in post-production, which is why I used the 60 frames per second. And hopefully with the next drone, I'm thinking DJI is gonna make it where you can shoot 4K 60 frames per second. They won't crop in, okay? They'll make it, this is 22 millimeters wide. Being 22 millimeters wide is really great in 5.4K. But like I said earlier, I'd rather have that 60 frames per second. And flying between objects in sport mode was no problem at all. And this is just one way to add more interest or variety to your shots rather than just getting these nice cinematic aerial images above. Get close to trees, get close to objects like I did in this video occasionally, and it adds a little more intrigue, and you can add cool transitions and do things in post-production that you can't do just shooting normally far away from them. So obviously don't do this right away. play. But once you become more familiar with your drone and a better drone pilot, then you can start to do more of these things. So the last shot in the video was actually my last shot for that day. And the sun was going down, the moon was out. I wanted to get that sunset there with the moon and the mountains in the background. And because it's a 1-inch sensor, I thought it'd perform well in low light, which it did. It was really dark at that point, so I had to crank up my ISO to 400, maybe even 800, I forgot what I used. I don't like to go above 400 with this drone. 800 is acceptable, but I would definitely not go above 800. I think then you get some noise in the image. So I shot at 400 or 800, either one, ISO 400 or 800. As soon as I started flying forward, I didn't even see or hear those geese because it was already getting dark, so it's difficult to see. And just at the last second, I did see them, but I was already going forward. There wasn't much I could do, and they flew right past my drone. I thought they were gonna actually hit my drone, but you know, those birds are pretty smart. I guess they know how not to hit a drone. So that was really cool. Because I shot in 60 frames per second, I slowed it down in post-production, and this is the shot that you get. So it's nice to get those lucky breaks every now and then. All right, hopefully you enjoyed this video. By the way, over the last few weeks, I've also been updating my DJI Drone Pro course to add new videos with the newer drones like the Air 2S, as well as my Part 107 Pro course, because there was new rules by the FAA that came out last month in April, and I've added those to my course along with updating it from the feedback from the students that I've gotten. And I'm adding more and more videos over the next couple weeks. So if you're looking to become a commercial drone pilot and pass the Part 107 test, which you need to make money with your drone, you can check out that course down below, and also my DJI Drone Pro course to step up your skills with the newest DJI drones. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend that you think might enjoy it. I'm Breck Aramella, the Drone Pilot Pro, and remember, fly like a pro.